Hey, I am going to show you how I make this patch using an applique design and printed fabric as the main patch feature. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is the file that I'll be using to create a patch of Georgia, and this is a 5-inch applique that I bought from somebody on Etsy, but it only has 3 stops, so it will make a nice and simple patch. There's nothing going on in the center. I'm not merging any wording or anything. This is just a basic patch that I'm going to use some printed fabric to make it what I want it to be. And I'm going to save this to my flash drive and carry it over to the embroidery machine. Okay, so this is the part where I get the fabric together to go on the hoop. I'm using some printed material. This is not for sale, so copyright police, do not come for me, okay? But just showing you how to use printed material for a patch. With this, the patch is going to be a 5-inch patch, so I cut the material about 5.5 on one side, and the other side is like way beyond 6, just to make sure that I do have enough fabric for the actual design. I'm going to fuse it to some stabilizer, which is what am I using today? I think this is 809. This is 809 or 808. I do apologize. I will look and I will put it in the description just to be sure to let you know what it is that I'm using. But I'm gonna fuse this to the back. It is fusible and it's a little bit bigger than I needed, but that's fine. Get that on there pretty good. And then I'm going to hoop. Yes, I am a floater. I'm going to hoop what we call Vilene. It is a water soluble stabilizer. I ordered this from All Stitch as well. And it comes on a few different sizes. I'm not sure. But anyways, I'm going to hoop this. But because it can tear, sometimes I will hoop 2 pieces at a time, but since this doesn't have any extra stuff going on the inside, I'm just going to hoop 1 piece and we'll see how that works today. And I'm going to be using my PE 770, which is the older version. I know a lot of people now have the PE 800s, and that's hooped pretty well. I do always check to make sure the stabilizer is hooped good so that I'm not getting any sagging spots. Cut that off. And what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do a placement stitch. And then I'll put the fabric down and then I'll do the second stitch. Then I'm going to clip the edges and then I'll do the satin stitch. Okay, so let's go to the hoop. Okay, I did say let's go to the hoop and I really meant let's go to the machine. So I've got my bobbin thread already in there. I'm going to set the hoop on here so that it will be here. Doing this on camera is not something I am well versed in right now. And I will get the flash drive with my design on it, so that we can put the design in. Let's see, I always let it stop flashing so that I'll know that the machine will be able to read it. I'm going to hit that button, which is for the USB retrieval. There is the design right here that I want. So I'm going to select it, hit upload. I've got 3 stops, and now I want to make sure I have my machine threaded, okay? I'm going to just use black thread today. And you always want to make sure the pressure foot is up when you're threading your machine. And sometimes you hear like the little clicks where it's actually going through the different slots to get it in place. And this has a threader as well. It's just not the push button. You slide this down and it pushes the thread through. Okay, so now I'm going to lower that pressure foot And I'm going to stitch that outline. And this will be a fairly large patch. 5 inches is a pretty good size, okay? And you can always go smaller. In the pack of appliques that I bought with this, it actually had a bunch of different sizes. So I think you'll be okay. I want to say it was ZDIGITIZING. I'll put the link, or I'll put at least the name of the Etsy shop that I bought my applique patches from, or I should say applique designs. Now that's ready. And the tricky part with this is finding the exact place that you want your fabric to go, because you want the most in your design, the most of your design in here. So I definitely want the word Georgia in there. I definitely want that puppy in there. And I'm not going to worry too much about the other. Maybe if I slide it this way, I'll get a little bit more of the design. Yeah, that'll work. I'll get more of the design in there. Okay, so I'm going to lower that down. Well, it's already lowered down. Hit start. Stitch the next step. And it really is a bad habit to hold your finger on your hoop while you're stitching. I know some people who have had some problems. I should have brought that down a little lower, but that satin stitch will cover it, so we'll be safe. Just let that finish stitching out. And it's going to hold it in place really well. And I think I have a good amount of the design in there, so I'll be okay with that. And this is actually only the second design that I've stitched out on this machine since I got it back from the shop, because I had to get some parts replaced on it. I guess I used it a little too much. So that is done. I'm going to lift up the pressure foot. It did cut that final stitch, although the PE 770 does not cut jump stitches. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to cut all the way around this as close as I can without cutting into the actual thread, and then we'll go from there. Okay, cutting out the edges, or what you don't want in the patch, is best done with some curved applique scissors. I still have not found the kind that I truly like, but these work. I think I got these at Walmart. I have another pair that I ordered online a while back and I can't find them. I rearranged my room and I can't find. So, oh well. And like I said, I want to get close to that line without actually cutting into the line, because you need that stitch to be there, okay? And I know there are other ways that people do patches. This is just how I do mine. And when you get down to these little curves, it is a little bit of a challenge, but just take your time with it and you'll be able to get down in there fairly close. In this guy's designs, he digitizes his appliques really nice. He gives you a really nice thick border. And I truly appreciate that. I'm sorry I am sniffing. I have allergies. Good thing you can't catch nothing through the video, but it is allergies that I have. I do this all year round. Sorry. And let me move my hand here for you, just to show you that I am cutting along and just trying to take my time so that I don't cut the Vilene, because you want that to stay back there for now. But I also want to get this all cleaned up as much as possible, because there's only one more step left after this as far as stitching is concerned. I clipped that, but that's okay, because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do after this, because we do want to make sure that your fabric doesn't fray. Just clip real close. At least I got the smaller bulldog in there, so that works. Our kids went back to school today, virtual, of course. So I'm gonna get this done and get back to checking on him and see what he's doing over here with this computer. I can hear the teacher talking in the background, so that's okay. Excuse me for rambling. I do that sometimes. Can you see my hand? I'm just cutting here. Okay, so I've cut all around the border, okay, fairly close, and there is one spot where I clipped into the thread. You don't really want to do that, but this is something else that I also do with all of my patches, especially with the fabric patches anyways. I use fray check. You can use whatever brand you want. I like Dritz, but this is what I use to go along the border. And get that extra off of there. And I just cover the border, the edge of the actual fabric along where the thread is as close as possible without getting it all over your actual piece. Because a lot of this will get covered by that satin stitch. That's going to be the last step. But at the same time, don't get all the fray check onto the Vilene, because the Vilene is water soluble. And although I've not had fray check make it dissolve, I don't want somebody saying, oh, I did this and the Vilene broke up before it was time. So I went through all the border of it with fray check. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to take it back to my machine. Okay, so we're back to the machine now. We have our patch back on it, or our hoop back on it with our patch in place. Everything has been trimmed up. We had the fray check applied to the edges so that it doesn't fray. I'm going to put the pressure foot back down, and we are going to stitch that final step. And that is the satin stitch. It takes a little bit more time, of course, but as you will see with this particular design, remember I said I wasn't too concerned about the fact that I cut down into the thread just a little bit. The way JL digitizes his designs, he gives you a little bit of room for error, okay? So if you ever see this video, I truly thank you. And so it's just going to stitch all the way out. And now it's going on to the outer edges of it. And it is stitching onto the Vilene, but it will be fine. It's not going to just fall off, and you'll see. And this is just one way to make patches. Okay, depending on what design I'm using, I will use a different technique for creating my patches. If it doesn't have a whole lot of anything, or if it's just me using the printed fabric as the patch and I just need to pretty much put a border on it. Oh, I thought something weird happened. If I just need to put a border on it, this is what I do, okay? And now if it's something where I've got stitches going on the inside, there's another technique that I use, because the Vilene, you really don't want a whole lot of that behind your iron-on heat-applied adhesive. But just check out how that's stitching there. I am truly liking this. And I promise y'all, I'm from up north, and me and my husband have been in Georgia for a few years now, and it's taken some time for me to actually get into this whole Georgia thing. My Ohio State fans, please don't hang me for it. I still do Ohio State stuff. Still love y'all. But it's hard to find fabric down here with the Ohio State prints on it because I'm in Bulldog country. So I'll let that continue stitching out. I'm not going to just hold the camera and hold you hostage watching this. And we'll come back after it's completed its stitch. Alrighty, so now we are finished. I am going to lift up that pressure foot, take this off of the machine. Now, what I'm going to do next, you see how it's stitched really nice and close, and the back looks good as well. I'm going to take fray check and go along the bobbin thread, just to be sure, for my own peace of mind, that it's not going to unravel on me. It shouldn't, by all rights, it truly shouldn't. And then after the fray check dries, I'm going to remove the Vilene. Okay, so here's our good old fray check. And I just realized I didn't have my microphone on. But I've got the fray check, and I'm going to go along the edges here. And freight check is probably about $2 or $3 for this 0.75 fluid ounce bottle. That's in the US. And I think the prices are pretty much the same everywhere. I don't think I paid that much more when I was living up north. Okay, so freight check has been applied. I like the way it looks so far. I'm going to unhoop it and begin taking the Vilene off. Now, initially, yeah, I do cut it off. Let's see here. What you could do, honestly, is let your fray check dry just for your own peace of mind. But I'm going to cut along this edge as close as possible. I really need to do something with my hands. Goodness gracious. Not worried about that. Those are where the stitches began and ended, and they should be locked into place. And I'm still just cutting as close as I can. Without cutting into the threads, because that's what I don't want to do. Yeah, I just have my scissors completely upside down now, but it's all good. Okay, I've got that. Now, I'm just going to do a light cut in without going all the way through. I just want to cut a slither in there. Make sure that I am just seeing the stabilizer in there. You know, the stabilizer that we ironed on. I don't want to cut that off. I just want to cut the Vilene off. And you see what I mean? When it's just an applique and you're using the fabric as the patch design, it makes it so much easier. Makes it almost too easy. That's starting to get on my nerves. Let me get rid of some of that so it's not in my way. Okay. And I'm just, I wasn't under the camera. I'm sorry. I was holding it up thinking that I was showing you how close I was getting. Did that. Okay, so that's pretty close so far. Now, the beauty of Vilene, it's water soluble. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get some warm water. Actually, it's going to be hot water. And I'm going to get a Q-tip and I'm going to dab along the edges until it disappears, okay? And then once it dries, I'll be ready to put the heat adhesive on the back. Okay, so I've got a cloth, hot water, and a Q-tip. I'm literally just going to go through with the dipping and dabbing. And that's what we'll call it. We'll call it dipping and dabbing. And let me hold it up closer so you can see how when you put the hot water on the Vilene, you see how it dissolves? And I'm going to do that all the way around. Now, yeah, if you are doing a whole lot of patches, this will be time consuming. But if you want a patch that has just the satin edge with no extra fabric and stuff showing, this would be worth your time. And of course, you know, if you're selling them, you just adjust your prices for your quality. Gonna just dab that right on off. And I do get the Vilene from All Stitch. I don't know who else sells it. Sometimes it's not thin enough to, it's like doubled over or something. I'm not sure what happened right there, but it didn't all dissolve. So I'm just going back over it again. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing with the back just to get rid of it. And you don't have to. You can actually just leave that in place and put your heat applied adhesive on the back. I think that's what it's called. Today we're going to use, what am I using today? Because my other stuff that I get from All Stitch I am out of. So I'm going to use some Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. That's what I'm going to use on the back of this, okay? So let me finish cleaning this up and I will get that heat and bond. Okay, so I had to go find that heat and bond ultra hold. This is what it looks like. This is ultra hold. Let me turn that around. Ultra hold, I hope you can see that. But some people have tried light. Light is not going to work, okay? So I'm going to just cut a little bit of this off, and I use different scissors for the tacky stuff. I'm going to just make sure I have enough for the patch. I'll put this away. And because I don't want the adhesive to get onto my ironing mat, this is a cover for my table that's actually an ironing mat. But I don't want that to get all sticky. So I'm going to get paper towel. This is shop cloth. You know, it serves the same purpose. And I'm going to make sure that this is lined up so that all of it gets the application on it. Then I'm going to turn it over. And I guess I could have lined it up after it was turned over. I just want to make sure every piece is covered. I could have cut that a little bit bigger, but I'm going to turn my iron off of the steam. You want to do dry. And I'm going to hold this in place, okay? I'm not really going to rub back and forth too much. Now, some people will tell you to follow the directions on the actual wrapper, which says to hold it in place. I think it says 8 seconds for each section until, you know, all of it is actually adhered. But I just kind of, I guess I wait until the ancestors tell me to get up off that iron, girl. And then I'm going to let it cool. Yeah, it's, see, this is why I use paper towel, because I don't want that stuff on my ironing mat. That will ruin your stuff. And now at this point, you can either trim it and leave the paper backing on, or you can trim it and take the paper backing off and iron it to whatever you're going to iron it to. Okay. So I think it's cool enough. Yeah, it's cool. You see it's nice and shiny. And so I'll just trim all of this here up on the edges. And you do want to make sure you are very careful, because you don't want to do all of this work only to turn around and cut your patch up, okay? And if you don't want the heat apply option, you don't want to make it an iron on, you can just make it a sew on, and then you would just sew along that satin border once you have your patch in place on whatever item you're trying to sew it to. And now this is thinner. It's not, you know, a really bulky patch. It's literally fabric and stabilizer. But when you're putting this on clothing, I kind of like this. And a lot of people tell me that they like the thinness of it when they're putting it on a child's t-shirt, which is what I do most of my patches for, are kids' shirts. But it doesn't make it feel like they're wearing a bulletproof jacket or something. So I'm just going through, getting as much of that adhesive trimmed away as I can without ruining my patch. And some of it will still show on the outside, but that's fine. It'll show on the edges. I don't remember if I said outside or edges, so it's early. I'm only my second cup of coffee in. Okay. I'll get a little bit more of that off. Okay. So there you have it. You have a patch that you created on your embroidery machine with a applique design. The feel of the patch is simply the fabric. It's printed fabric. Heat and bond ultra hold to make it an iron-on. And when you press it onto your shirt or whatever, you're just gonna apply it to the fabric where you're gonna apply it to. Press, hold it for anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe 12 seconds, just depending on how hot the iron truly gets. So you'll iron it in place and it should be good to go. Alrighty. Well, that one is done. I hope he likes it. And I've got a few other kid patches that I'm going to do slightly different because they're more intricate, but that'll be in another video. Thank you. Alrighty, so that was it. I hope that you enjoyed or at least learned something from the way I make this particular patch using the applique frame and just fabric as the main patch feature. It looks on camera like this edge is white, but that's actually the heat and bond. And so when it's ironed onto the actual item, you're not going to see all of that. It will just be the solid black border. And it's nice and lightweight. So if you're putting it on a shirt, it's not going to be heavy at all. Tell me how you think of it or what you think of it. Yeah, I'm going to get this together.